Right, guys. Well, welcome back, everyone, to All the Wealth. If you are returning, thanks for being on this journey with us. If you are new, welcome to our community of wealth builders. You are officially a wealthy. Welcome, wealthies. All right, so today, let's jump right in. Here we go. Why are the rich getting richer while so many of us are just kind of drifting? Or worse yet, falling behind, right? We're seeing the stats everywhere. The wealth gap is getting bigger, the rich are getting richer. So, what is their secret sauce that the rest of us are not taking part
It's
in? It
investing.
is.
Investing in the market.
Yep. And as we always do, we bring you the facts. We don't just tell you, but we bring the facts to you. So the reality is the richest Americans own the vast majority of the US stock market, and that is according to Fed data. The top 10% of Americans hold 93% of all stocks, and this is the highest level ever recorded. We're looking at like 100
Wow.
years of data here. So, where do the rest of us fall in? Well, the bottom 50% of Americans held just 1% of all the stocks when they looked at this number in the third quarter of last year.
And then there was this perception, at least especially during COVID, right, that there was a lot more participation in the market, right? The regular folks were more inclined to start investing, even if it was in small amounts. And certainly the platforms have made it accessible, right? It's much easier to actually place the trade, have an account. But clearly that's not moving the needle in any meaningful way.
And I mean, that is the reality. Like, they are investing in the market. The wealthy understand that the best returns, or some of the best returns to be had on their money, is by investing in the stock market. And then they have another thing that helps them tremendously is they have the benefit of getting wealth advice. That's
Mhm.
another like clear stat. 70% of Americans don't have access to a wealth advisor. And you might wonder, okay, well, what's the big difference in terms of building wealth? Well, those that do, Vanguard has studied this time and time again, grow 2 times more wealth. So they have the benefit of
Yeah.
one, understanding the power of the market, taking advantage of it, and then having a wealth advisor to help them guide, pick their investments, figure out tax strategies, figure out when to go into certain parts of the market. And that dual effect is what has them owning 93% of all stocks.
And understanding how to protect it,
Exactly.
right?
So, what they are not doing, which is what many of us in the middle do, is letting their money sit in savings accounts that are paying barely any interest. And they're also avoiding what I like to call the middle class trap, over investing in their home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we should.
They also have the advice part. There are certain things about that make this, when you look at it, right? The information and what wealth advice does and how it compounds. So just think about it. You not only are you comfortable with investing because you have sort of this safety net of this professional help, but also figuring out, how do you manage your assets? How do you manage your cash flow? How do I take advantage of an interest rate environment that allows me to have a 3% mortgage interest rate, right? What does that do for my cash flow in the long run? What does that do for me to be able to sit on an investment and have it grow and it costs me practically nothing from an interest rate perspective to have this thing, knowing when to time these changes or change up your leverage in order to take advantage of long-term returns. And that comes from the
Yeah.
advice. That's the advice piece that people, it's almost like a little bit intangible. It's like, what is this person going to do for me? They're going to help you take advantage of the environment, the ever-changing environment. It never stays the same.
And I think an advisor is also helping you better understand your options, right? I call I call out home ownership because what we know is for most Americans, particularly middle class, upper middle, their homes are their biggest asset. And the tendency is to buy the biggest home you can afford.
Mm.
And that may not be the best thing to do because real estate, when you look at the numbers over the last like 40 years, has returned roughly 3%
Yeah.
compared to the market returning 10 to 15%.
And understanding the price of the home, right? And how that is so much more important than even the interest rate on the mortgage that you choose to purchase the home, because the interest rate will change, right? We could refinance, there's opportunities in the beginning, but paying too much for your house at the start, it's very hard to recoup that. Right. So that piece, understanding where and how to find the opportunity for purchasing a home. I mean, there are other factors. Are there any, starter homes available is another conversation. But investing in real estate is just a portion of wealth building.
Absolutely. And just like investing in the stock market and making sure you're diversified, we have to look at our homes as yet another piece of the puzzle and making sure we're not over investing in one asset class and under investing elsewhere. And I know that big house is like a status symbol, right? Like I want to live in the right neighborhood, in the right house. And it is an expression of my success and it's outward, it's visible versus your equity portfolio.
Oh yeah, you can touch it, you can feel it. I remember, and I felt this every time I purchased a property. Like I've known that it was a good decision. But that feeling after the closing, it feels like I have more money left,
Right?
right? So you take all this money and you throw it into this thing, and it's now you have the
Yes,
thing, but you don't have the money anymore. I've
exactly.
always had that weird like anxiety feeling after. I mean, you wrote, I've been happy, I have the keys,
Yes.
but then my bank account certainly looks a lot
Yeah.
different
And this
afterwards.
is where a wealth
Yeah.
advisor could help you sort of go through the numbers because, of course, the interest rate environment today is different than it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. But
Mhm.
this is where sort of on you have a limited pool of resources. For most of us, it's our income that you are
Mhm.
saving to invest, be it in a home, in the stock markets, but knowing having that advice to really look at the options and then making sure that you are not falling for the known traps, but flexing like the wealthy people are.
Yeah, and I think for I think another thing that happens is I just realized and I remember is that for the average person when they're purchasing a home, the whole underwriting process, right? You're going to applying for this mortgage. The bank loves when someone has a bunch of money sitting in cash as opposed to having X amount of dollars in an investment, right? So it's like this things like that stick in your head, right? If you decided I'm going to invest my money and then you go through this process of trying to purchase a home, qualifying for a mortgage, and you get this feedback as if like, well, if it was all in cash, from an
Yeah.
underwriting perspective, you're a safer investment. Us lending you this money is a safer investment. It's all these little things that stick with people that sort of they have these milestones in
Yeah.
life. They do this thing that they feel like they're supposed to do. It's important for themselves, their family, and building wealth. And then you get these little messages, right? That maybe this isn't such a good idea, which
Yeah.
is absolutely untrue, right? The bank is thinking of themselves. They're not thinking about
Yeah.
you
And
when
what
they
we
make those.
so we have to understand sort of like the role of home ownership, but we also have to like keep tackling these myths, right? Like what are the things that are stopping the rest of us from investing, right? So definitely some people think the stock market is gambling. I felt like I certainly grew up in a household that was leery of the stock market, but the stock market is not gambling. So if you're out there thinking that the stock market is gambling and it's the reason why you're not investing, hear it now. The stock market is not gambling. You are literally buying into an investment.
Yeah. Well, if you, I mean, the way I grew up, one, investing was never a conversation, but the saving, right? The how you build wealth, the whole saving conversation never came from a space of abundance, right? It comes from a place of trying to be safe, trying to ensure that if something happens, you have enough money to cover an emergency, and sort of that the people who had enough money and saved enough were doing the right things because they're protecting themselves, while forgetting that you can do both at the same time, right? The wealthy people have figured out that their money needs to work
Yeah.
for them.
But I
That's how you
but
build wealth.
Tanya, to that point of, for many wealthies out here who are first time wealth builders, first generation wealth builders, I can relate to the feeling or coming from a place of scarcity and wanting
Hmm.
to protect, right? This is the instinct to protect the assets that you now finally have. And this is where I think it's
Hmm.
so important as you start investing to understand your risk appetite and understand that there are investments across that risk spectrum. So if you are like, hey, I'm very worried about losing money, and this is why I prefer or I am inclined to leave it in low interest paying savings account, start and look at conservative investments so that you can start to build your knowledge and comfort base. There are things that are lower risk, like bonds, to things that are higher risk, like aggressive technology stocks that carry far more risk, but also have the potential for higher returns. So, understanding
Yeah,
you don't have to go for the spiciest. You can start with the mildest of investment strategies.
you don't need to go for the spiciest, and you don't need to invest all of your
Yes,
money. That's There's a couple ways to manage your risk. It's one, the investments that you pick and how much you invest.
absolutely.
We can create, you can be overall conservative, meaning that I have 20-30% of my savings in the stock market and the rest is in interest bearing. And that may be the right way to approach it for someone who's never done it before, right? How comfortable am I with seeing these price movements? And over time, as this thing starts to grow, you get more and more comfortable. Like, all right, well, I just left all this money on the table. I could have,
Exactly.
over time, I could have made more. And it's an experience that doesn't require you to jump in 100%.
Absolutely.
It's something that you can do over time, and it will benefit you to do it over time because time is the component
Yes,
that makes investments work. It's the most important
absolutely.
component
And you're
of wealth
and we
building.
should point out that you're not alone, right? If we just look at our WealthMore folks, most of our people are in that balanced or moderate growth portfolio. So people are somewhere in that middle of, I want to enjoy in the upside of the market, but I also want to minimize potential downside, right? People are more outliers in our aggressive growth portfolio. And that is completely human and completely natural. But understanding that there is like mild to, super spicy, and figuring out like where you want to be on that heat spectrum is all part of the investing journey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think the other thing like we need to also talk to people about, which Tanya, you've already started to sort of highlight this, is the balance strategy, right? Like starting, you don't have to go all in. You can start investing, increase your investments as you increase your confidence.
yeah. You can do that, or even if you're just starting and you don't have any investments at all, or you're still in the stage of, what, I need to ensure that I have enough emergency savings, right? And this is where the benefit of working with an advisor really, really helps. So let's say you work with the advisor, and we you say, well, I want to make my money work for me, right? I want to ensure that my money, it's working towards my values, which is saving, building wealth. You go through your cash flow and you figure out you have an extra $500, right, a month. You choose on how you want to allocate those extra $500, right? If you're saying it's important for me to continue to build my savings, well, do both at the
Yeah.
same time. Take a portion towards your savings and take the other portion towards investing. It doesn't have to be all or
Yeah.
nothing, as we mentioned before. But sometimes that's the benefit of having someone
Yes.
else, right? Who's an expert, really considering your goals, your overall financial situation, and helping you make decisions that will benefit you in the long run. Because you may be missing out. If you
Yeah.
say, I have this extra $500, but I want to put it all in my savings account because I want to do that first. Okay. But you don't have to do it that way.
When I look back, there are so many things that I would have done differently if I had the benefit of sound financial advice. I
Mhm.
definitely got the same message that most of us are fed. Save, 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 keep it in savings accounts, CDs. Even though I started investing early, just by pure luck, and I think I've told you guys this before, I took an internship at one of the big banks, and that team taught me everything about investing and to start early, to stick with it. But it wasn't holistic financial planning. It was like the importance of investing, but not looking at the full picture. I definitely could
Mhm.
have bought
Well,
less
that's
house,
interesting, right? Because you had this exposure rather early, but it was focused on the
one
one
swim lane.
thing, and that could have been right? It could have been for a whole bunch of reasons. It could have been, people don't understand that when you engage with a planner, or even someone like me, who I was been a planner for about over 20 years almost now. When people ask you about their finances and they say, "What should I do?" And I'm not talking about the client that I'm sitting down with. We have all the information. The person that figures out this is what you do for a living. This person may be able to help me. Let me ask them a question. And my answer is almost always, it depends. And it's an annoying answer because it really does depend. You have to understand that sometimes when you get advice from other folks, and it's not that it's bad, it just may not be right for you. You don't know that until you know your
Yeah.
full financial picture. And these folks were trying to show you, right? This is the power of
Yes.
investing. And they gave you a leg up because you felt more comfortable and you were
Yeah.
educated in doing so. But now you can look back and say, hey, maybe if I would have made a couple different
I
decisions,
think one of the
what could it
big
look
things was I early on understood the importance of investing and was certainly doing it, like putting money into the 401k, maxing it out, like keeping track of every year when the government sort of ups the limit. I was doing all those
like? Mhm.
things, but I was also simultaneously buying into this narrative of like, pay your house down, right? Like, get
Yeah.
out of debt, like the house, you want to pay it down. And I've spoken to other people about this, right? Where we all got fed the same narrative. And
Mhm.
so if I would get like a bonus or a tax return, it was like, oh, maybe I should like pay, put a little extra against the mortgage to pay the house down. If I were working with a financial advisor, they probably would have been like, pump the brakes. You have historically low interest rates and the
Mhm.
market is like on overdrive. Look at the difference between the interest rate and what you could be making, even in the most conservative of investments at the time. And that difference would have clearly suggested, hey, maybe you might think about that differently. And maybe not. Maybe I could have been like, I just want less of a mortgage, and that's fine. But I would have had the options laid out.
We would be making an
Exactly.
informed decision, right? So I have plenty of times had this
Yes.
conversations with clients in the past, and I've had to show them, right, the
Yes.
difference, right? We use financial planning software. We can sort of model out what it looks like if you take more money and put it towards your home as opposed to taking that money and investing over time, and what could the outcomes be.
Yes.
And sometimes people need to see it to make the
You
decision, or
got it.
sometimes you need to do something in the middle, right? But knowing you're
Yes.
making a real decision,
And when
right?
you
And you
guys
know,
and when you model it, Tanya, you're also modeling like the benefit of compounded interest, which is
oh yeah,
another big thing that, helps, it's why when you look at an investment over 30, 40 years, the number like grows because of that compounding interest effect.
yeah,
And it's huge. And, a wealth advisor will sit there and say, okay, well, let's try this scenario versus that scenario. And when you look at the numbers, you'll be like, okay, maybe I should do this. Or you could be like, no, this is an emotional thing for me and I just want to do this other thing.
And when you think about diversification, it's not just the type of investment, making sure that you're invested in different things that have exposure to different areas of the market. You're also diversifying your liquidity. So when you have a home and you're looking to sell it, there's a whole bunch of factors at play that will determine how, when, and for how much you sell this house. Very different when you have liquid securities, right? And a lot of people do depend on the home as being sort of this cashable at some point. But they're just like with someone who has their own business, there are a lot of factors that go into play when you're looking to liquidate a tangible investment in that way. Diversifying your assets, not only from having a business, a home, and liquid investments like stocks or bonds or ETFs or things like that, is a different way of diversifying. So that when you do need cash or you want cash, you have a lot of options
Yeah.
to actually get it.
And we'll drop this link into, when we post this, we'll drop the link in so people can have the data as well, or we'll, probably put a screenshot in here. But we looked at the different investments. And Tanya, I know you didn't want to go back to 1928, but we have the data going back to 28. And if you had put $100 back in 1928, if you had put $100 into the S&P, and that also factors in dividends, you would have almost $800,000. $100, 1928, and I know that's almost 100 years, but you would have almost $800,000. Now, let's compare that to real estate. That same $100, you would have $5,400 roughly.
It's a big
I
difference.
want that to sit with you. So as you're thinking about where should I invest, that is the power of the stock market and why the wealthy get wealthier.
Yeah, and in my experience, I mean, back when I had my own practice, I mean, there's certain like interactions that I've had with people that never leave me. And one was this woman who her uncle back in the 20s had purchased a couple shares of stocks, opened an account for her. She never touched it. And she had close to $1 million in this account. And she said to me, she said, I didn't pay for it. I never needed it. It was never, anything that I counted on. I didn't even know what it was really at the end of the day. This is an older woman. And she said, and then when I figured out how much I might be paying in taxes if I sold anything, and I didn't need the money, so I left it. And then this money, this was going to be inherited, right, the right way. But it's an amazing thing to see.
It is, and I'm always data driven because I want people to have informed numbers. And the reality is, and we have this data across a bunch of different things you could do. If you had put that $100 into investments, almost 800,000. Real estate, 5,000 and change. T-bills, which are still way below the average savings rate, you're looking at about $100.
Yeah, that's nothing to be excited.
I mean, 800, 5,000, 2,000. The numbers do not lie. So hopefully we've stated our case and given you the facts for why you should be investing. But now what? What should you do if you're not investing already?
Get started. Yes. Come on over to WealthMore.
We're happy to help you.
We're happy to help you, of course.
But I just want you to get started, and then I want you to stick with it. Right?
Yeah. So I had mentioned, I mean, I keep mentioning this, that the time factor, time and consistency are your friends when it comes to building wealth.
Yeah. It is not a mystery.
Even if it's small.
This is not a mystery. This is not like some secret that the rest of us don't have access to. You can come and start investing at WealthMore. You can start small. continue to build your wealth. There are other places that you can start investing, but certainly we give you the two things the wealthy have: portfolios to invest in and the benefit of a wealth advice, so you can have those two superpowers. But we want you to really think about the power of investing and how that has helped that 10% that own 93% of the stock market versus the bottom 50% only owning 1% of the stock market. So the wealthy, are playing and leveraging the markets. They are putting their money at work. I like to say that my money should be working harder than I work. And I can only,
Yeah,
that's the goal. I need sleep, but my equities don't.
They
They
really
don't. And I want to encourage you guys to not have lazy money. If your money is not working harder than you, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Put your money to work, do it in a way that benefits your wealth building, but lazy money does not serve you.
No, not at all. And the wealthy figure that out, right? And not only do they figure that out, they do it. They teach their kids.
Yes.
Right? So sort of this cycle of like reinvesting education, reinvesting wealth and growing over time. You can start doing that for your own
You can
family.
start that. We talk about this in other episodes, the power of community and building that knowledge base individually within yourself, but then sharing that knowledge, getting other people in your communities, in your network, investing, and then paying it forward, teaching the next generation, so that this just becomes part of what they do. They have the tools, they're comfortable with it.
They build good habits.
Yeah. So we've given you the data, guys, and it's not small. These are huge numbers. We encourage you to meet with a wealth advisor, start investing, get a community of investors around you. It's a lot easier to do this together. And of course, you can always come do it here.
Yeah, not only that, I think we also, WealthMore, you go to our website, you can book a call with one of our planners.
Yeah.
You can book a call to learn more about us, to learn more about how we help. It's free.
You can book a call with Tanya.
Yes, you can. My Calendly link is there on the website.
I highly recommend that you do that. So we've given people some homework, right? Obviously, go to wealthmore.net, book a call with Tanya. We will share the data with you guys so you can look at it on your own to see the power of investing and how different investments have performed over time. But the key is to get started and stick with it and have solid advice along the way.
So we have a new year in what, 11 days? I mean, I'm not a big fan of New Year's resolutions. You can start
today.
You can give yourself the gift of wealth and start.
Absolutely. And speaking of the new year, we should make you guys aware that our community membership, which is free, launches in January. So, of course, you can go to wealthmore.net and pre-register for community. But our communities are led by our wealth advisors like Tanya, and we are giving people easy information. So if you want to learn more, obviously you can subscribe to our All the Wealth channel, but you can also join our communities and get the information in real time.
I'm looking forward to seeing some appointments on my calendar. We'll see.
That's right. Wealthmore.net. Tanya's link is right there.
It's there.
Guys, you have the information. This is our last episode of 2024. We will see you in 2025. All the wealth.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.